What's going on, guys? It's your boy Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back with another video talking about people that I would love to interview in 2021. For those of you that have seen, a few of my videos have been interviews. Basically, I did an interview with my former carer Drew, talking about what moving out was like in 2020. I did an interview with my sister talking about Harry Potter and bits like that. I did an interview with my friend talking about what's the word? Harlow College and what our experience was like there. I've found over the last however long I've been running this channel, I'm drawing a blank right now, that I enjoy interviewing people. So these are just a list of 10 people I would love to interview in 2020. Now, some of them are more interviews that could happen and are more likely, and some of them are dreams. But also, they're not just people. They're like they're not specific people. There's some scenarios that I'd like to interview people for. So basically, I'll explain. With number 10, for example, someone who has started a new job in 2020. We obviously had a difficult year in 2020 with the pandemic and everything going on and being locked down for a while. So I am really curious to pick someone's brain about what getting a new job was like in 2020. I'd love to know how they found this job, because obviously doing in-person interviews is a lot harder at the minute. Was it on the internet? I'd love to know how they settled in this job, because obviously it might not be the normal working environment. You might be told, here's some work to do from home, or stuff like that. So yeah, I would just be very curious to pick someone's brain and find out what getting a new job was like in 2020. Number 9, this is a bit of a morbid one, but let's call it morbid curiosity. I would love to interview someone that has had COVID, because obviously we know that this disease is very deadly. It is very, it has killed a load of people. So I would love to interview someone that has had COVID and basically find out about their experience. Because from what I've read and seen on the internet and the news, symptoms can vary. Like it's like you've just got the flu, or you can feel like you're on your deathbed. So I'd be very curious to know, like, also where people think they're picking it up, where the biggest spots for picking it up is, what people feel like can be done more to prevent it, are people doing the right thing, etc. So, number 8 is someone who is a teacher in 2020. I should note as well, I've lined up, hopefully, some of these interviews. So I've lined up someone that started a new job. I've lined up a teacher in 2020. Because obviously teaching is different now. From what I've heard, you are separated a lot. Like you're only in that bubble with those students. So I would love to know, like, was planning lessons different? Because a lot of lessons were also done online at the start of the pandemic. Was how was planning lessons different for online than it was for in person at the minute? Did you feel like you had to cater to different students for it being online? Did you feel like you had to what did they learn from the pandemic? Like, what do they feel like will change for the better in schools because of the pandemic? And just an untapped gold mine like that. I've realised that's my catchphrase at the minute, but moving on. Number 7 is someone who has worked for the NHS in 2020. Hopefully, all being well, I've lined this interview up too. So it would be very cool to know, like, was the part of the NHS they worked for as overwhelmed as others? How did they deal with the overwhelmingness? I don't know if that's the right word. How did they deal with like patients? Were they scared they were going to catch it off patients? Do they feel like hospitals were treated fairly, or do they feel like people were just a bit, I guess, rude to hospitals? Do they feel like some hospitals got the wrong end of the stick, and like more patients were sent to their hospital than others? Did they feel like their hospital could have done more? There's just so much of an untapped gold mine there. Excuse me, guys, I've just got to let my dog out. In there that you, in my opinion, can go with. So many questions I'd love to ask. So, number 6, and we're starting to get to people now, is Chris Van Vliet. For those of you that have seen, I am a massive Chris Van Vliet fan. He, in my opinion, is not only the best wrestling interviewer out there at the minute, I would class him as up there as one of the best interviewers of all time. And as someone that wants to become a great interviewer, I would love to sit down and pick his brain for an hour and find out how he started in interviewing, how he gets all his connections for people. Is he just a go-getter and a DMer like myself? Or does he have someone that organises interviews for him? What is the process of an interview like? Who are his dream interviews? Like, again, what is one interview he was really looking forward to but bombed? One interview he was not dreading, that's the wrong word, but felt like went really well. Wasn't excited for, but felt like went really well. Where does he want his channel to be in so many years? How does he feel like he can improve himself? There's so much of an, I'm going to keep saying, untapped goldmine with these interviews that I feel like would be really cool. Number 5 is the Cultaholic boys. For those of you that don't know, Cultaholic is a wrestling YouTube channel, and in my opinion, that basically they cover the shows, like they review them, and other series on their channel. I feel like for me, they're my favourite wrestling YouTube channel. So I would love to pick all of, there's 4 main guys, there's 5 main guys. There's Tom Campbell, Ross Twaddell, Adam Pacitti, Jack King, I think is his last name, and Sam Driver. So I would love to have either an individual interview with all of them, or one big interview. I'm not picky, but I'd love to know, because they previously worked for a bigger company called What Culture, what prompted them to leave, like what was that process like, how did they break it to What Culture? Was there any backlash from What Culture? Did they feel like it would succeed? What was the moment they finally felt like it succeeded? And just bits like that, really. So yeah. But also, the interview I'd be most curious to do is Tom Campbell, because he wasn't a part of the original lineup for Cultaholic. He is a radio guy, and he basically came in... what is the word I'm looking for? He basically came in after the fact. So I'd love to know how he felt about stepping into an already established product, what he feels like he could have done more, how he got in touch with the boys, and bits like that, really. So yeah, that's about it, really. Obviously, I'd have loads more questions. And I'm going to be honest, guys, I'd be a bit like a super fan. Number 4 is Flash and Jax. For those of you that don't know, Flash and Jax are a comedy duo. For those of you that saw my what is going on holiday in 2020 video, like, you will know that I saw them when I went to Clacton. I nearly said Southend, I do apologise. So I would love to know about their comedy style, how they bounce off of each other. Is their routine scripted, or is it completely off the cuff? How they both got into comedy, how they met, and just bits like that, really. Yeah, it's just something I would love to do. How they feel like comedians have to toe the line because of the world we live in right now. When they feel like comedians go too far, what constitutes funny for them, and just bits like that, really. Number 3 is Simon Miller. For those of you that don't know, Simon Miller is probably the main YouTuber at What Culture Wrestling, which is the channel that the Cultaholic boys previously worked for, and he's now sort of taken over as the lead guy. So I feel like I'd love to pick his brain about what that was like. Was there ever a discussion of him going with them? Did he feel like he could fill that void? And also he has his own channel where he talks about fitness. So I'd love to talk about fitness with him and bits like that. I'm going to try and speed through this. But, again, he's also a professional wrestler. So I would love to, in his 30s, which I think is really cool. So I would love to know how he got his start in wrestling. Why did he want to do it? What? That's quite funny. Why? Because that's his catchphrase. But yeah, I would just love to sit down and have a chat with him, really. How he feels like YouTube can improve. Does he ever feel like there'll be a working relationship with Cultaholic? Because I'd love to see him on videos. And his current... Because he's like the most positive dude in wrestling. I'd love to ask him what is one thing he absolutely despises in wrestling. So yeah. Number 2, and this goes back to a topic rather than a specific person, is someone that's entered a new relationship, a romantic relationship in 2020. For me, I feel like that would be so interesting because because I would love to know how people met during lockdown. Was it online? How they kept the romance alive? Was it online? Did they have to do anything they weren't comfortable with? What did people decide, like, that were on the fence about moving in with each other? Did they decide to lock down together and that's what clinched them moving in together? And I just feel like that would be very interesting, really. Number 1, and this is my dream interview, and this if ever happens, I will be so happy. But it's Olly Murs. For those of you that have seen some of my previous videos, depending on when I upload this, it'll either be my top 10 favourite songs Olly Murs has done, or my top 10 amazing facts about me, where I talked about Olly Murs being my favourite artist. I would just love to sit down with him and have a chat, because he's an Essex boy like me who's achieved his dream. So what? And he was on the X Factor for so many years, so I would love to know what that process was like. Does he feel like he's achieved his goal? Because in his audition, he said he wants to be an international superstar. And just bits like that, really. Again, all these interviews, some of them could happen, but if any of the big ones happened, I'd be fun. But I'm a big believer in you put stuff out into the universe, they're more likely to happen. Anyway, guys, that ended on a bit of a rambly note, but I'll see you in the next one. Bye!